do people need to really just get used to the inflationary world we're in now? Obviously, in the last couple of years, people have been really hearing about it a ton, but this is just going to speed up, is it not? I mean, I feel like we're at the exponential part of this debt curve where this is why Bitcoin, for all intents and purposes, is going to go parabolic, because the debt curve, the debt going up, I mean, to the United States government admission, Lynn Alden points this out all the time, right? Nothing stops this train. It's kind of where this started from in a way. She published that CBO report, a Congressional Budget Office, whatever it was, and it just goes parabolic over the next like 20 years. And that's the Bitcoin chart in essence. So are people going to have to get used to this world of just higher inflation? And is that truly where we're headed? And are people going to figure this thing out, or what?
I think that is where we're headed. I agree with Lynn. Nothing stops this train. So the only way to protect yourself, though, is to have a digitally scarce finite asset, which is Bitcoin. And nothing else can protect you from what's coming, I believe. I don't think property is going to solve it for you, because they're going to tax it from you, or they're going to rezone it. And, in Australia, we've got this insidious tax, much like the unrealized capital gains tax, but one of our state governments has created what's called a windfall gain tax. So what this tax is, if you've held property for 50, 60 years, like we've had a lot of Italian and Greek immigrants come out and buy on the outskirts of Melbourne, which is the Victorian national, the national capital, the capital of our state, Victoria. They've bought a whole host of farmland around it to create farmers markets and till the land. And they've held this for 60, 70 years, some of them. And we've had this urban creep that's come to their back door, and the government wants to rezone their farms from rural to residential. And that means an uptick of, double, triple, quadruple the value of their assets by rezoning it, literally a stroke of the pen on the government's behalf. And the government of Victoria, in their infinite socialist wisdom, has said, we're going to implement this windfall gains tax, that if we rezone your property from rural to residential, we're going to take 66% of the uptick in that value of that property.
Wow.
Yep. Wow. So if someone's got a $10 million property and they revalue it, rezone it, it's worth $110 million, they're going to take $66 million of that $100 million gain.
Jeez.
My question is, why am I greedy for wanting to keep my money?
That's incredible.
So I look at this and think, the unrealized capital gains tax, it's already here in Victoria and with a lot of these landowners. And we speak to a whole host of investors who are, it's made Victoria uninvestable, because if you've got to give away 66% of your gains on a rezoning of the property, then how do you make money? And this is why we have a housing affordability crisis in the country. And I look at this and I think, what's wonderful about Bitcoin? There's no windfall gain tax on that. There's no one telling you what you can and can't do with your Bitcoin. There's no authority to say, hey, pay us a land tax on our Bitcoin. It's free and open market. And this is where I think we're moving to. What you alluded to is some potentially very dark times. And the only way I see to protect yourself from that is to have exposure to Bitcoin and have as much as you can sleep with.
It's absolutely remarkable. And that's why Bitcoin is so incredibly important, because you put it in your head, your wealth is in your head, and you can walk to the next country that treats you better. Go where you're treated best. Wow, what a wild time. And it's important because that's happening all around the Western world. So people have to be aware of this, whether you know it or not. This is what's happening all around you. And so that's why this is so incredibly important. What was your, really quick before we go into just some price and where you see things headed and stuff like that, what made you click? We talked about this earlier, of gradually then suddenly, and eventually, like, you're doing your homework, and then it just clicks for you one day. What were those moments for you? And I like sharing this because, again, we have a lot of people that are maybe newer to Bitcoin, or they're learning Bitcoin that listen to the show. And I always share my couple things so people can, go look at it or whatever, but it was understanding self-custody. And to what we're saying right now, you don't own any of your assets at all. Maybe gold and silver you hold in your hand or something like that, but Bitcoin is the only thing where you can custody it, walk all over the earth, and hold the wealth in your head as well on top of that. And then seeing the log chart. So those couple things, custodying your asset, realizing you don't own your property, or, your real estate, you don't own stocks. So you custody your Bitcoin, seeing the log chart of it and holding the wealth in your head, and the log chart being for the person that's listening, that it stair steps up over time. It's a network effect. So it's not actually just like going up and down like this linear crazy price chart. It's people adopting this technology over time, this money over time, and you start seeing it just goes up and to the right. So what were the things for you that really your aha, where it finally clicked for you when as you were going along your studying path?
Oh, good question. I think there were so many things that just really needed to click. And I wish I had the panacea, the silver bullet to tell you, hey, this is what did it for me. But there are sort of multiple different facets to that question for me anyway, in answering that. And I'll mention a couple of them. And what fundamentally happened was it just all the knowledge was there, and I understood all of these different facets. And then one night it literally just clicked. It set in place. And so for me, one of the big things was understanding that Bitcoin is something that can't be replicated. So I understood absolute digital scarcity, but I didn't believe it, because I thought, no, someone could create another network. Someone can create a new thing. There can be a new Bitcoin. There can be a MySpace to a Facebook to a MySpace. Technology's evolving, and, we're going to see that, Bitcoin fall victim to that. And then I understood that Bitcoin really is a trust machine, and it has the longest digital record of an immutable ledger, which has never changed. And I thought, wow, that to me is something that's actually really, really valuable. If you have a ledger that is immutable, that can't be changed, there is significant value to that. And sort of conclusions I drew from that were that in order for a cryptocurrency, a token, a coin, whatever you want to call Bitcoin, in order for a network to be better than Bitcoin, it needs to have a longer immutable record than Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin's got a 16-year head start on the next available. So I look at this and think, as long as Bitcoin keeps working and doing its thing, then it has won the trust game. And we talked about earlier that, we've got a degradation of trust in our institutions, our financial institutions, our economic indicators, our numbers, everything that we rely on. So what is going to be really valuable long-term is something that you can completely trust. And this is the beauty of the Bitcoin network. I looked at that and went, wow, once I understood that you can't, Ethereum can't recreate what Bitcoin did. It is one of a kind. Once I went down that and realized that this is the only thing that you can rely on, all of a sudden I realized, well, everything else is a subset of that trust. And this is the most trustworthy thing that I can find. Once people understand that, they're going to apply a lot of their time, energy, and capital into this network versus anything else, because this is the most trustworthy thing that you can find. So there were multiple different things that sort of had to click, but that was probably one of the biggest things that for me was, oh, okay, this isn't replicable. You can't just recreate it. It is a one of one. There's only one invention of digital scarcity, absolute digital scarcity. And by the very definition, you can't recreate that.
What is the biggest thing that, or most concerning maybe, that you see in the space, or maybe something that people just aren't, privy to, or Bitcoiners aren't focused on? Because there can tend to be, obviously, a lot of Bitcoiners spend time on Twitter, and maybe Nostr and stuff like that. What are some areas that, and those areas can be filled with a fair amount of noise, as we know, Twitter, X, whatever. So what are things that you think are maybe concerning, that you see? Maybe there's nothing, but is there anything out there that is something where you're like, you know what, maybe we should be paying attention more to this, or this is not getting enough love? Or
I think probably the biggest concern I've got is, this is probably coloured by being an Australian, where one of our national slogans is "She'll be right, mate," is the fear of apathy around the Bitcoin network, that, we just stop caring about it. And if you stop caring about it, then that will fall into, decay, and it will ultimately not be what it is today. So I think all of these spats and debates that we see about knots and running knots, and, Luke Dasher and, the core team basically at it, I'm like, this is great. Like, no, I don't like seeing people fighting, but it means you care. So if someone's fighting, they're interested. There's no apathy there when people are doing that. So, more of that. I'm like, hey, this is really great.
If you like that clip, then you definitely got to check out this next spicy clip. I think you're really going to like it. Come on, check it out. But if you want the full version, the full interview, then check that out over here. Come on, do it. I'll see you in there.